Hi. Okay, you should be pretty excited with yourself because we have finished one of the hardest parts of a sock, and that's turning the heel. So right now we have our cuff. We have our ½ inch transition between the cuff and our heel flap in the bottom of our sock. You did your heel flap, which is just a straight piece of fabric, and then we did the turning of the heel, which again to me is one of the hardest parts. You have to really focus on that. So now we're getting ready to go ahead and pick up stitches along the side, each side of the heel flap, so that we can start knitting in the round again. So let's look at our work. And right now you have just finished a purl stitch. And so what I want you to do is count how many stitches you have on your heel. And I think I have 14. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So I want to divide those in half. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to slip that first stitch, and then I'm going to knit 6 stitches with 7 with my slip stitch. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I should have 7 stitches. 2, 4, how do I have 6? 2, 4, 6. I did 8. So let's put 1 back on this needle. There we go. So we have 7 on this needle, and we have 7 on this needle. So let's go ahead and finish knitting across these 7 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now once you get to the end of your heel flap, the turn of the heel, we have, if you look at this, you can see we have all of these big stitches, and this is where we're going to pick up yarn to make a new stitch for each one. So you can either use a crochet hook if you're more comfortable with that, or I'm just going to use my needle. And I'm going to use this needle. You can use this one, but then you have to transfer stitches, and that's okay too. So if you're going to pick up with this needle, then you just start. But once you get all of these stitches on here, then you have to go back and transfer these 7 to this stitch. Otherwise, you're going to run out of needles. So let's go ahead and start picking up the stitches that we need. And I'm going to pull this. When you look at this first one, we have yarn coming out of that stitch. So that means I can't go and pick up a stitch in there because it's actually connected to the stitch that's around the needle. But what I can do is I can go through both legs of that stitch, and I can pick that up, make a stitch, and then you can put that on your needle. So there, you've picked up your first stitch. So each one of these large stitches is where you're going to pick up a stitch and then just place it on your needle. And again, you can use the same needle to do the same technique. Just make sure you get both legs. I like both legs. Some people only pick up one leg. I like both legs. And you just keep picking up stitches in each one of those large. Those were your slip stitches at the beginning, and that's why we slipped them first of all, because then it's easier to see where we are picking up our new stitches. So I have 2, 4, 6, 7. 2, 4, 6, 8. I've picked up 8 stitches. 9, 10. Okay, so I'm at a small stitch. I'm going to pick up that stitch, 11, and then I'm also going to look between, let's pull that up, between where I can pick up a last actual stitch. There are little stitches in here, and you are welcome, if you want to make sure you don't have holes in your sock, you're welcome to go ahead and pick up. You can either choose one of your stitches here, or you can pick up in between right there. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick up another stitch right in line. There we go. Okay, so that's going to be one needle. So I'm going to get my extra needle and I'm going to knit across the top stitches. And this is what we were not working with when we were doing the heel flap and turning our heel. These are the stitches that were just empty. And so now we're going to start working them again. So I'm going to knit across all of these, and that will be the first needle of my front stitches. And then once we get to the second needle, we're going to knit across those also. Okay, we have those knit. So let's go ahead. This is our second front needle. And we just have to pick up stitches on the second side of the heel flap so that we can start working in the round again. And again, just start thinking about those stitches on that heel flap have been slipped. And so they are bigger stitches than normal stitches, and that's where we want to pick up stitches. Okay, these two needles are complete. This needle on this side of your heel flap is complete. We have 4 needles on, but we have 1 left for knitting. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pick up these stitches and then knit across these 7 stitches. So let's go ahead and get started with that. Let me get myself some more yarn. Now again, a lot of times this is a place where we get a hole, is between where we've just left it flop. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down 1 stitch, and you can see this stitch actually comes into here. And the way you can tell that, let me get this closer, is when you follow this yarn across. Let me do it this way. When you follow this yarn across, it goes into this stitch. So actually this goes into the next stitch above it. So where the yarn is coming across, that's where I'm going to go ahead and pick up a stitch. Trying to keep my yarn from getting all tangled. I'm not doing very well. And then I'm going to go ahead and find the next place, and you can see all of them. Let me turn it. You can see all of them are larger, so that's where I'm going to put my needle, and I go through both legs of that stitch, and then I'm going to go through here. And if you're using a crochet hook, it's just the same. I'm using my needle as a crochet hook. And this takes a little practice. If you want to practice it, this is a good place to practice it with. Okay. And so I'm getting very close to my other needle up here at the top. So, and don't get frustrated. Your yarn gets all tangled around and gets just take your time. This is not a race. Just take your time. Pull your yarn away and get started again. Pick up another stitch. If you have to clean it up again, just clean it up. It's not worth getting frustrated about when things go badly. Okay, I have all of my stitches picked up, and I'm going to go ahead and knit these 7 stitches onto this needle that I just picked up my heel flap stitches with. And I'm actually going to knit them. I'm not slipping anything this time. We are actually knitting them. So once we get to the middle of our heel, where I am now, I'm going to stop for a minute. So when you look at this, your stitches look like this. But the next thing I want you to do is I want you to count each needle that has picked up stitches. I want you to count all the stitches on these 2 needles. Let me open them up. on these two needles where the heel and the heel flap is. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's do it again. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. I'm going to write that down. I have 19, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. I only have 18 on this side, which is okay. It's not a problem. We will fix that later. So our goal then is at the top of these needles, if each of these needles, every other row we are going to decrease by 1 stitch until we get to the same number of needles that were on it before we started the heel. And you can tell how many you had on by counting these ones, the ones at the top. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. I have 12. So that means on this needle, I want to go down 7 stitches. On this needle, I want to go down 6 stitches. So what I will do is I will go ahead and start decreasing, and let me show you how we decrease. I'm going to put you on hold for just a minute. Okay, so we're at the middle of our heel, and we want to knit up here to the last 3 stitches. So let's go ahead and do that. And that will take me a little while. There are quite a few stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now sometimes you'll see you have a bigger hole here. I wouldn't worry about that. It's because we didn't pull our yarn real tight. You'll get better at it, and sometimes I still do it, and I've been knitting socks for years. It's not a big deal. Okay, I'm almost there, almost there. There we go. Okay, I have 3 stitches on this one. So on this side, and if you look at it, this would be the right side of your foot. On the right side, we're going to knit 2 together, and then knit 1. Okay, that's your first side. And see, those kind of closed up a little bit after you have them knit, and they kind of fall into that groove. Not a big deal. Okay, so let's knit across both of our top stitches. I bought some, oh, I can't think of what the name of it is, but it was mostly acrylic to make socks. And I made them for I gave them to my daughter when she came out to visit us. And I'll tell you, usually I'm not terribly fast with socks, but I do a pretty good job. As old as I am, my hands hurt. But the acrylic was horrible, 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 horrible to work with. I was not happy with it, and it took me a lot longer because the acrylic doesn't give like wool yarn does. And I know wool yarn has to be taken care of a little bit differently than acrylic, but wool yarn is not as hard on your hands. It does give. It's very nice to knit with. It has a spring to it that acrylic does not. Acrylic is just very rigid. I found one acrylic that I did used to like to work with, but even now, as I get older and my hands hurt, I don't even like working with it. And it was softer. Okay, so here we are. We've knit across both of our top socks, and we are at our heel flap again. So here, we are not going to knit 2 together. We're going to do a slip-slip knit. So the first stitch gets knit. And then in order to do a slip, it's the same thing as we've done slip-slips before. We slip one, and you're going to do it knitwise, and slip the next one knitwise. Take your left hand needle back down through those 2 stitches, and then knit that together. And then knit to the end of your row, clear down to your heel. Now, you might want to use either a stitch row counter or just use ticks on a piece of paper to let yourself know where you are, because we are only decreasing every other row. And if you think of the entire sock, knitting completely around the entire sock once, that is one row. So when you get back down to the heel, like I am here, that's where I consider the beginning of my round to be. Let me lay this down. So I have to knit the entire way around and get down to the heel of my sock to begin the second row. So you can either put one of your stitch markers, I don't have any right now, you can put a stitch marker here, or if you're like me, I just remember that once I get to my heel, that's the beginning of my round again. So this round, we are going to knit the entire way around. And I'm going to pause my video while I do that, and you go ahead and do that too. Pause the video. And then when we come back, I will be back down here again, but I'm just going to knit all of these stitches straight through because I want to do one more row of decrease with you so that you can kind of see. Okay, I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we're back. I have just knit that next row. So we're going to do a decrease row again, and we're going to do that together. And I know this takes a little bit of time for me to knit, but just bear with me. And I want to tell you to remind you that if you have a different number of stitches, what we do is when we get to one of the final rounds, you will decrease on the side that you have the extra stitch, and then you'll just knit the other side. So when I get to the point that I have 12 stitches on one and 13 on the other, okay, so we're at the last 3 stitches. Let's stop for just a minute. We're at the last 3 stitches. We're going to knit those 2 stitches together and then knit the last one. And what you'll see is that's starting to create a ridge going down your sock. So when we get to the other side, we're going to do the slip slip. So let's knit across our top stitches. So I've seen some videos where when they're doing things like this, they speed it up. But I'm not speeding it up because I'm just going to take it that you're knitting with me. And you might be a slower knitter than I am, or you might be faster, but that's okay. So if I speed up the video, you actually have to stop the video until you catch up to me. So I'm not going to do that with these tutorials. Some things I have done that with, and that's okay, that's good. If you know how to stop your video in the middle while you're watching it, you just hit the pause button and then catch up and then hit your start button again, and that will get you to where they are also in the video. Okay, I'm almost finished with my 2 top needles, my front needles at the top of my sock. So when we get ready to go down on this heel flap again, we knit, and you can see we're there. Let me pull some of my yarn so I don't lose my stitches. I don't like to do that. Okay, so we're going to knit that first stitch, remember, and then we're going to slip, and we slip it as if we're knitting it. Take our left hand needle back through that 2 stitches and then just knit them off. And then you can knit until you get to the heel flap. Now I am going to show you what I mean about odd stitches. For example, you know I have 19 on the right side of my sock and 18 on the left side of my sock. Ooh, I just dropped that. That was not cool. Let me pick that up. I should do just a video on showing you how to pick up. I think I might have done that. I'll have to go back for my videos. How to pick up when you drop. which is very easy. Okay, so now my next round I will knit around, but let me explain. We already know that this side has 19 and this side only had 18 when we counted the originals. So I have to, when I get finished, and this one only has 12, like these needles, this one will have 13. So I'll go ahead and decrease one more on this stitch because I do want 12 on all of my needles. So if you have an odd stitch on this side, that means you would just knit this one, knit, knit, and then decrease here again. And then once you get to your 12 stitches on each needle, then we are working the foot. And I will come back next time and talk to you about working the foot and how we measure so that we can get the right size for our foot. Okay, I hope this has been helpful. I am going to separate these two videos and do the circular needles on a video of their own because this is a little bit longer. I hope this has been helpful. I hope you're enjoying our series, and you can kind of see that's what our sock looks like right now. You've done a great job. Okay, I'll see you next time when we talk about the foot and how to size it. Bye.